It's a new year. Happy New Year. I said that very sadly, and it's a new year. How did you do with your year? Did anybody learn a new language? Anybody? Was anybody attempting to learn a new language and couldn't? Or what? Okay. Did you laugh more? Master the violin? Give up anything? Spend more time with your family? Any of those things, like were they goals, things that you feel like you did a little bit more than you did the year before? Or all those would be good things, right? I know that I set a lot of New Year's resolutions and goals for myself. I like to challenge myself. And I like looking back on the year and knowing that I accomplished something, even if it was ridiculous. Which a lot of times it is, especially when it involves loopholes of going to Kentucky. For almost all of 2025, I was a pescatarian, meaning I only ate seafood and vegetables. With the exception of a week of vacation, 1 weekend to Michigan, 4 intentional trips to Kentucky to go to Raising Cane's, and an imported turkey at Thanksgiving, I was pescatarian. Not bad, like 350 days out of 365. I say that's pretty good. Yeah, thank you. I was even more successful, though, at one of my other goals, which I didn't say a lot about, was that I was trying to avoid artificial color. No red 40, no blue 5, none of those, nothing, that is a color for no good reason, has nothing to do with the flavor, nothing to do with the nutritional value. I just wanted to eliminate all of them. So I can say with absolute certainty, I ate nothing blue or green, like those dyed green. I ate lots of green vegetables, obviously. Nothing blue went in. You see, no M&Ms, no Skittles, not a single one. And I feel good about that. Maybe had a microscopic amount of red 40, and that was only by accident. I really missed having those peppermints back there because those were great. That's why there's still a container back there, because I didn't eat anything with red 40. The ones that I did were accidental, so we'll let those slide. Not bad. Not a bad year for that. I also did a few things for a month. I shared with you guys that I went a month without coffee, or caffeine in general. I didn't have any caffeine for the entire month of February. And there was another month where I successfully stood outside at night, completely silent and completely still for 5 minutes straight every single day. It may not mean a lot to you, and I didn't really have a lot of reason to share it, but it was kind of cool to me that I was able to, train my body to go just stand still, and it was cold the month that I did it. Feel good about that. But my other months, none of them were 100% success. Not all of my challenges were successful challenges, so I really can't show you like a year in pictures. Like you don't get that like summary year like you do with, World News or 2020 or whatever the things where they do the recaps. I don't have one of those. National Geographic does one. There's always a best of 2025 pictures from National Geographic, and they're always amazing pictures. They do it to mark all the special pictures that told a story. I especially like this one. This was one of the ones from this past year, 2025. This is a photo of a bee that has fallen asleep. It was working in a sunflower field all day. The photographer stood in the field with one sunflower for the entire day, just trying to capture a bee in that moment. And the photographer got a bee after it had worked the entire day, did all it could, and then fell asleep. I think that's kind of an interesting story, right? Like, you can tell a lot, it's got cool detail, and it gives you a story in that one picture. If I were to take one picture from my year that could tell any kind of a story, it would be this picture. This is the best I can do for a picture that I took this year. I take a lot of school bus photos. That's just kind of a thing I do because I'm around it all the time. Like, there's lots of abstracts to them, lots of color and fun. This was almost a year ago. This was January 6th of last year that this photo was posted. I like to tell stories about school buses because that's the life that I'm living day in and day out. Here at Lifestream, we completed an entire year of a theme of Synergeo. Remember Synergeo? Which means all things working together. Yes. And that theme was our theme for the entire year. It's taken very specifically from Romans 8:28 as a main verse. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. That together we have the objective that we can let it ring out as our theme for the year, make it an anthem of our daily lives, that everything we do as a congregation can be to combine our efforts, to combine our skills, to produce good works, and to be a witness of that unity that makes us closer as a family. It's very easy to lose track over 2 or 3 months, right? You could go 2 months and really kind of forget where you've been and what you've done. You could be on autopilot. And sadly, that often means losing connection with the people that are in your life that can help build you up and support you and strengthen you, like your church family. So the hope was that by working together, we could look back on the year and see how the body did its part to strengthen itself, that how our work together could be strengthened together. Synergeo happens when the body works together. The body makes the body strong. Iron sharpens iron. We may not have anything as cool as a bee sleeping on a sunflower for a picture of our Synergeo year theme here, although that is kind of a cool picture of working together if you know that there are lots of other bees and they're all doing the same thing. That would be a good picture of that. But I did find a couple of pictures that I took from my phone for the year that I think kind of tell a story of Synergeo. So these are my year pictures of Synergeo. We have, all the way to the left, you can see that is a padlock that is opened next to a communion tray. If you recall, during Easter, we had an escape room sort of set up. Like there were like boxes and locks and puzzles and clues. You guys remember that? And like you collected from the other boxes and formed puzzles and unlocked the locks. That's working together to unlock the puzzles. The second one is the chili pots from the trivia where we had the chili night, where everybody brings in their own version of chili. That's everybody working together at something together as a family. And then the last one is just, for me, it's a nice reminder and it's a nice thing to look at and see that picture of the ladder. If you recall, if you have any memory at all, there was a banner that was outside of this church for many, many years that said, "Find your hope this Easter," and it was mangled and tattered, which we do still hope to find the hope every Easter, but we didn't need the mangled, tattered banner to remind us of that. So when we did the Christmas stuff here, I'm like, you know what? We're all here together. We got a ladder. We got lots of help. I'm going to go tear it down. And whether you realize it or not, it is now gone, but that is in case that is a way of seeing that we all work together. Those are my pictures. I didn't take a lot, like the Donuts with Santa, there's a lot of pictures from that, but I didn't have any on my phone for that. But we did some things that are Synergeo things together as a group, as a family. We've looked back now. We've seen what 2025 was. And I've told you last week that we're going to use a Hebrew word as our theme word for this year. Synergeo was a Greek word, and it was focused on the group. It's all things working together. It's a group working together. So our theme for 2026 will in many ways draw upon the individual, because it's a word that requires individual action. And our theme word for this year, if you remember, SHEMA. In the Old Testament, SHEMA is a word used when men and women are asked to hear something with their whole heart. Not just listen, but listen, understand, process, and respond. Hearing and reacting. That's SHEMA. SHEMA is a calling to obedience, which will be the prevailing message for this year. We will be talking a lot about obedience. How are we obedient to God? In what ways do we respond to what we hear God communicating to us? Or in what ways are we silencing what God is saying because we have chosen to hear other things in his place? We have a hard time with obedience, don't we? When you grow up in a free country where you're told you can do whatever you want to do and be who you want to be and just take whatever path you want and just take as you go, we are less inclined to obey authority simply because it's authority. We're more likely to argue that the authority that is authority shouldn't be authority, and we don't recognize it as authority. But obedience makes it for us that we have to recognize authority. SHEMA is a call to obedience of the authority of God. I want to be clear that this year is not going to be a year intended to be 12 months of try harder sermons. It's not behavior modification. It's not guilt tripping about noncompliance of fellow Christians. A congregation that is working together and getting stronger together doesn't need to be individually attacked in the ways that they're being weak links. The pursuit of the SHEMA this year is a formational journey. We're going to learn to listen to a God who already knows us. We'll build strong foundations of hearing and obeying, just like the Jewish community used to do, and still does to this day. The Jewish community uses the Shema as an invocation into all their services and into their daily lives. In fact, this is something that they do morning, evening, and before every time that they worship. And on special occasions, all the time, the Shema is recited. The scripture that I quoted from Deuteronomy last week is the phrase that they speak out loud as devout Jews on a daily basis. Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. That verse is so important to them that they call it the Shema, because the word hear, the beginning of that in Hebrew, is Shema. This becomes a phrase. They will recite the Shema morning and evening every single day. It's a command that's given from God that they are to hear. It's a verse that is telling them, I am the Lord your God. There is no other God. Don't think about any other thing but hearing me and responding to me. He calls them to respond because he's already acted. It's a command that flows from relationship. It's not a test. God's not saying, obey and then I will love you. He's saying, listen because I already have loved you. The verse is just as true for us, as well as the command that follows it in verse 5 of chapter 6, Deuteronomy. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. Israel made the Shema their call and response, like a roll call of life, sort of. Who they are and who's in charge every single day, to show that they wanted to continue to listen, to hear and respond. The same can be true for us. While it's not as common to hear a call and response type of liturgy in a church like ours, our denomination doesn't have a lot of that. It can be healthy as a congregation to respond together in declaration of unity and mindset and focus in a phrase. Let's see how good you are at it, congregation. Shema, O people of God. The Lord is our God, the Lord alone. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. These words can be spoken every week, over and over again, and have more meaning every time. Saying them in unison as a group helps us solidify the bond of accountability amongst all of us as individuals and as a family. They can also just be words that are recited with no meaning if you don't allow them to have meaning. If you are, as an individual, choosing to not put your heart into what you say and to not adhere to the words that you're speaking, you're not responding. You're not Shema. Just like in a wedding ceremony when the bride and groom repeat their vows. If it's a ritual for ritual's sake, just another thing that you say before you get to kiss the bride, the vows were not truly vows. Or a confession of faith, when a believer comes in front of the congregation and speaks the words of their statement of acceptance of Christ's sacrifice on their behalf, anyone can repeat the words. Anyone can say after someone what has been said to them. But just having the words come out of your mouth does not make them true just by repeating them. Whoa, here we go. It's like a little panic button. I can reach back there. Like, you don't want to hear this part. Anyone can repeat words. And words that are just repeated are not Shema. They are not you responding from your heart. And speaking of weddings and obedience, it's time to start tackling the first series of 2026. I've explained the yearly theme now, Shema. And how each month the series that we do will flow in and out of Shema. It'll all, in one way or another, pertain to Shema, to listening, to hearing, and responding. But every month still has an individual theme. We still have to have themes, right? Got to have cool graphics to put on the screen. So this is where I got a little bit creative this year. This is where I'm kind of stretching to motivate myself to do a little bit more. So Israel was called as a nation to be obedient in the Shema. But Israel is more than a place. Israel was first a name. Before it was a place, it was a name. In fact, it was the name of Jacob. He was given that different name at birth, Jacob. He was the second in a set of twins, and he came out holding his brother's heel. So Jacob's name means grasp the heel. That's what Jacob meant. Later on, Jacob would have an encounter where he wrestled with a divine figure. And then after that wrestling, his name would be changed to He Who Fights with God, or God Contends. His name became Yisrael. And Jacob, now Israel, went on to have 12 sons that became the roots of the nation of Israel, all becoming a tribe of Israel. And each of their names has reason and has meaning. And you've already figured this out, I'm sure, because you're all smart. There are 12 people, and there are 12 months, and every name has a meaning. Each sermon series is going to be based on the meaning of the name of one of those 12 sons of Israel, and how each of their names and the importance of the meaning of their name correlates to hearing, listening, and Shema. So in essence, we will have 12 different approaches to listening. The first son for our first month is Reuben, which means, see, a son. His name reflects the idea that God saw his mother, who all her life had trouble being seen. But before we can have the baby, we got to have a marriage. So let's go to 29:16, because I said the marriage reminded me of the theme. So Genesis 29:16. Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the younger was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes. We'll get back to that. But Rachel had a lovely figure and was beautiful. Well, who cares? Come on, really? Is that what matters? I don't know. I guess it did in the way he's seeing it. But Jacob was in love with Rachel and said, I will work for you 7 years in return for your younger daughter Rachel. Laban said, it's better that I give her to you than to some other man, because he's not a stranger. He's been with him for a while now and knows him. Stay here with me. So Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel, but they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. It just went like that, didn't it? Beautiful when you're in love. Jacob is really interested in the younger daughter, Rachel, not the older sister, Leah. Leah never caught the attention of Jacob, or really anybody, even though it was very typical to pursue the older daughter. The Bible describes it like Leah went unnoticed because of her weak eyes. Most scholars believe that phrase, weak eyes, was probably a reference to her not having a sparkle, that she didn't have that like energy or that vibrance, so she just didn't stand out as just being noticed at all. It's also suggested that lack of sparkle from her eyes was from being filled with tears, that Leah had a lot of sadness and suffering, and like maybe she had pain and struggling in her eyes, like the girl from the most famous National Geographic picture ever. Even though, without knowing her story, you can see it, there is a story. There is a story in her eyes, and maybe it goes the same way for Leah. Rachel was so attractive and had so much vibrance that it made Leah constantly sad, constantly in a state of struggling because she was overlooked, because she had a pain. She wasn't really seen by Jacob or other men because all they saw was Rachel first. So Jacob worked 7 years to get to marry Rachel, and then on the wedding night, Laban does a switcheroo and gives him Leah instead, which infuriates Jacob, but Leah had just wanted to be noticed and loved by someone. Laban agrees to give Rachel as well, so again, Leah is the unloved and unnoticed one. Both women are now his, but you can tell that it's a very unbalanced relationship. One daughter getting all the affection, all the attention, and the other being neglected. But where she failed to draw the attention of her husband, she found favor with God. Jacob hasn't had any children yet to build a nation, but God has already seen the struggle and the pain. God saw Leah's affliction, and the beginning of a blessed nation began with her, with Leah. Genesis 29:31. When the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, he enabled her to conceive. But Rachel remained childless. Leah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Reuben, for she said, it is because the Lord has seen my misery. Surely my husband will love me now. Because she produced a son, the hope was that now she would be noticed. Before Israel is a nation, God is an observer of pain. He sees affliction and he responds. Reuben's name, again, means see a son. God saw Leah's pain and saw to it that she bore the first son. So, as we begin to learn to learn to listen. Our first example reveals how we are seen first before we listen. Our struggles are seen. Our pain does not go unnoticed. Years after the nation of Israel has formed and grown, God would appear to Moses to call him to be obedient. But before he asked Moses to be a leader, God tells him that the people were seen. This is from Exodus 3. The Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. God describes himself as seeing, hearing, and knowing. And only then is Moses called. It's after God describes what he has witnessed that he tells Moses to go. God reveals his character before recruiting a follower to be obedient. Obedience is not assumed or demanded just because of a power of authority. It's invited through compassion and trust in that authority. We resist obedience when we feel unseen. When we think we're not noticed, forgotten, or just part of a mushed up mess of everybody else, it's easier to reject the idea of being obedient. And not even in the outright rebellious manner, we're actively campaigning to be disobedient. We tune it all out. We become immune to hearing God because we see ourselves as insignificant individuals. Like we don't matter. We don't stand out. And it's easier to hear the crowd and respond with the crowd and the flow of the crowd than to think that an all-knowing, all-seeing God could possibly have his eyes on each one of us individually or for any specific purpose. No photograph that has ever been taken of any person has ever fixed anything with that person. The pain in the girl's eyes from the National Geographic picture was not taken away by someone taking a portrait of her. But instead, the photos have shown the person like a mirror, revealing what can be seen. We are not a mass of unnoticed rejects. We are seen. We are recognized. We are understood. We are noticed. This month we will examine how we are noticed in order to hear and respond. Obedience is not invisibility. It's a call for relationship. And that relationship begins with these verses, and we're going to close from Psalm 56:8. Record my misery. List my tears on your scroll. Are they not in your record? Then my enemies will turn back when I call for help. By this I will know that God is for me. In God, whose word I praise, in the Lord, whose word I praise, in God I trust and am not afraid. What can man do to me? I am under vows to you, my God. I will present my thank offerings to you. For you have delivered me from death and my feet from stumbling, that I may walk before God in the light of life. Amen.